If you were a plant, what plant would you be?
Oh my God. I don't know. I've been thinking about this for a while. I could be a rose plant.
Why? This is new.
The thorn.
Okay.
The smell.
Okay. Do you think you're thorny?
Yes, I think I'm thorny.
How?
I think I'm definitely thorny. I think I appear really beautiful and like gentle, but I think I'm quite thorny in the sense that like if you say the wrong thing or if you like you could get on my bad side and it'll hurt, you know. Like my reaction will be just like a prick.
We're tucked into the duvet.
Yes.
Nice.
Ready to talk / sleep. If we sleep off, just know what happened. Do you understand?
I'll talk to myself. It won't be anything new.
Amazing. So this confessions of a sad Lagos boy.
I'm not even sad. I just have accepted it for what it is. From how Roland and our sweet girl.
They're fine, man, but they're not here, thankfully, so no disturbances.
Yeah,
My
like
grandparents in Yaba having a blast.
oh great. That's amazing that they get to go there.
I know.
Yeah.
It's actually such a lovely time spent. But anyway, so I think we've decided this is our first. Are you okay? Is it hot?
I'm just trying to finish my snack.
So we've decided that we're going to call the podcast "What Time Works for You," because we ask the question so often, and like, what time works for you? What time works for you? But then for us, we're also like, what time works for you? Like, how do you think about time in the larger thing and in the smaller thing? So we're going to start with we've introduced ourselves before, so we'll just ask you to introduce yourself and like in any way you can.
Oh wow, that's a challenge. Okay, so my name's Oroma Cookigam Itegwoje. I am a designer, living and working in Lagos. I'm the founder of This Is Us Nigeria, which is a Nigeria-made sustainable design brand. I'm a mom to 2 kids.
Of 3. Max.
4, maybe include OC. I'm a mom to 3 kids. A dog who's 7, a boy who's 5, and a girl who's 1, 18 months. What else am I? I call myself a life enthusiast. I just love everything that's living, and I'm obsessed with the beauty, bringing out the beauty around me. What else?
I feel like I'm
a general creative, I guess. I just like to create stuff.
If you were a plant, what plant would you be?
Oh my God. I don't know. I've been thinking about this for a while. I could be a rose plant.
Why? This is new.
The thorn.
Okay.
The smell.
Okay. Do you think you're thorny?
Yes, I think I'm thorny.
How?
I think I'm definitely thorny. I think I appear really beautiful and like gentle, but I think I'm quite thorny in the sense that like if you say the wrong thing or if you like you could get on my bad side and it'll hurt, you know. Like my reaction will be just like a prick. I won't kill you, but it'll be a prick. You know what I mean?
And you might wish you didn't kill me.
You wish you didn't. Exactly. So, yeah, I might be a rose plant.
Okay.
A rose. Not plant, not the flower, just the plant.
Why not the flower?
Because the flower, like you don't think about the thorns when you think about the flower.
Every time I think about a rose, I think about thorns.
There's some roses here. You won't find any thorns in it.
But it always makes me think about the thorns, because I feel like the story of a rose is so tied to the idea of a rose is something that is born of thorns. Like this beautiful thing is so born of. So it's always like this invisible
linked,
stuff. Yeah, it's always linked to me.
So maybe I'm rose flower.
Maybe. Because the thorns are your backstory.
They're hidden. They're just there.
They're just there.
They're just there. They're part of who I am, but they're not who I am.
Yes, exactly. Uzoma, if you had to be a plant, what plant would you be?
I feel like I want to say an avocado tree, just because I really like avocados, but that doesn't seem like a good answer. I have to think about it.
I feel like that's your answer. If that was your first answer, that's your answer.
Yeah, avocados are great. So I just want to be like, imagine being something that produces avocados. How blessed.
Right. Like when we are walking, it's like show you're walking, and this, you understand? Avocado show you're walking, and then it's the tree. I understand.
Yeah.
If I were a plant, God, I just talked about this yesterday. What did I say? What plant did I say?
Oh God,
I can't remember what plant I said. What plant? But now that I'm thinking about it, I would be something that took a lot of time to sort of like sprout. I would, oh my God, I would be an indigo plant. I would be an indigo plant. Like I would hide all my molecules and pretend I'm just a green leaf.
Exactly.
And then if you break into me, I start doing all these sort of
and you have all these colors.
Yes. And all those transformations, all those, like even when I die, I give up color. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's
Sorry, I had to answer your question.
No, it makes sense. Please answer for me from now on. If I ask any question to myself, just take the lead. But yeah, so Oroma, just some background as to what this podcast really is about. Uzoma, please jump in at any time. We're basically just trying to, rather than even answer questions that we have, we're trying to ask more questions, like add more interesting questions to this idea of querying time. And when I say querying, I mean othering time, because the idea of time that we have it's very complex. But when we say time on a daily basis, we mean like 1 o'clock or is it 2 o'clock? Mm-hmm. Even scheduling this meeting, like would it be 5 p.m. or would it be like 2 p.m.? That's our, on our microwave, on our like watches, on our phones. Like time is always, even as we're recording this thing now, we're being counted down. Like, so, but like, when do we get to step out of that time to see sort of like the time that has gone before us? Like, how do we, in our own daily lives, even refer to time in ways that we don't even know that we're referring to time? Like, for instance, now that Roland and Orone are spending time with their grandparents, that's a specific type of time. But it's not like, even though if it's Monday to Tuesday or Monday to Thursday, the time with grandparents Monday to Thursday is not the same thing as time with like mommy and daddy Monday to Thursday. It's such a different thing in people's minds. So maybe my first question to you would be like, as now that you've had kids, do you find yourself needing to redefine time for yourself, or does it still flow in the same way for you?
I would say that like before I had kids, I mean, my time has become way more precious to me now that I have kids, first of all. Before I had kids, I literally, honestly, I didn't think so much about what time to do what. I just did things whenever I felt like it. Pop kids in that equation, and what it makes you do is just basically you have to define things you have to do by like things you can do with them and the things you can't do with them.
That's true.
And so like everything that you can't do with them, you have to do at a time when they're out of the way. And so that's the first way that I kind of define my time. Like, is this something I can do with kids, or is it something I can't? Yeah, and then everything else flows from there. So it just means that it makes you kind of count your time more, because you then understand, oh wow, I've only got 5 hours in this day to actually do whatever I want to do. And so, yeah, I guess that's a new way for me of thinking about time. Time with kids, time without kids.
Has that helped or harmed? Or in what ways has that helped and harmed?
I would say it's helped, because I'm I had kids, I would do what whenever I wanted. So I'm not actually a person. But with kids, it's just helped me to kind of structure myself, because actually with or without kids, everyone kind of needs to structure themselves, because you're working with other people most of the time. So if my time it's made my time so much more precious now, that like I basically have to plan my days ahead, because there's these two factors that can disrupt anything anytime. And then that just means that I'm way more structured with the way I'm planning, not just with the kids but with other people as well, and with my personal time. There's more like a time for everything now. There's time to yoga, there's time for praying.
Do you pen it in? Do you know?
Yeah, I have like in my notebooks and my planners, I actually time my entire day, like 7 to 7:30, 8 to this, 8 to that. I don't always follow it exactly, but I know what I'm supposed to be doing at every time.
Are you one of those people that to-do list save my life? I just like putting.
Oh yeah. If I don't have a to-do list, I just won't do anything. if it's not on my to-do list, first, okay, there's two levels.
Okay.
If it's not on my to-do list, it will definitely not get done. If it's not on my even if it's on my to-do list, it might not get done. If it's in my calendar, it's definitely getting done.
Right.
If it's not in my calendar, it will get done, but I don't know at what time it will get done.
So does that mean that it's really important for you to kind of like visualize how your time is being spent?
Exactly. So when I go to my calendar, I have to understand what that day looks like, and I can see everything laid out ahead of me. When I don't see that, it's a struggle, but I can go past, I can go through it before it's a struggle. It's much easier when everything is just kind of like penned in, penciled in, and you can kind of understand, oh, this is what my day looks like. It's stressful or it's not.
Oroma, do you have that for every day, like all the time?
On fixing things in my calendar, and that's usually when I'm doing really well with my time. When I'm able to manage myself, like if there's not that many things, I'm not that busy, I just book 2 appointments in a day. I know I'm going to make those 2 appointments. But once I'm trying to do more than 2 things in a day, I need to put in my time so I can visualize it to see if it's practical or if it's not. Go on.
Are there days where you're just like, sorry? Are there days where you're just like, this calendar, I'm just going to chill, I'm just going to
the days where everything is scheduled in my calendar, I know it's in my calendar, and I just like ignore it. And that would usually be when it has nothing to do with anyone. If it's just my task, I'll just cancel everything and sleep or something. Like sometimes
makes me feel sad.
I know. It means I'm suffering, and the one suffering, but it just, like, sometimes I've overdone it. A lot of the times I've overdone it. Like, I've overscheduled myself back to back to back. And then I have one more day where I just noticed that, oh, it's all tasks to do with me. I'm not doing any of this. I'm going to the spa, or I'm going swimming. You know what I mean? Okay. Because I'm just like, this was a bad scheduling. I can do it another time. I'm still flexible with my time, even with my calendar. But
so you don't sort of like punish yourself when...
Nope.
Yeah.
No, I just reschedule it. So like,
when you miss stuff.
Generally, if I cancel something from my calendar, I don't just leave it. I reschedule it, because once it's in my calendar, there's already a time. It's that important that it was in my calendar in the first place. So it just moves forward. It usually won't just get like ignored.
I was going to ask, like in this stuff that Uzoma and I are doing, like the project, kind of like text is Arrow of God, and it's a complete. And I know now you're reading Arrow of God.
I just started though. I haven't really read much.
Yeah, but at least you started. Once you've entered the first page of that, you're already in. Yeah. You have to sort of like keep fighting to pull yourself in. Yeah. But the book is so out of normal time in terms of time that we know now, like in this century, or even in just our like despair in which we live our lives. Because maybe there are people in Lagos who, Lagos is so varied. Maybe there are people in Lagos who still live like that. People in the village who still live like that. But I know at least 2 of us, we don't really live like how they're describing that the locals live. Yeah. And some people, or sometimes when we think about calendars and systems and systemic time, that feels like such a Western version of timing. So how do you ever sort of like argue with yourself as to like, why the fuck should I be on, like, why should I be on this time? It's not even my, when people talk about how colored people's time is actually like, is real, because I mean, Nigeria, when you transfer an appointment, if you actually want guests to show up at 3, you say that the event starts at 12, and many people will get there for 4. So like that understanding, that understanding of like, this is who people are. Do you ever feel like, why should I hold myself to this standard when it's there? Or do you feel like people should actually like, improving the systemic thinking of their time doesn't make them any less African or any less indigenous?
Yeah, I don't think it makes you any less African or indigenous.
That's a great question.
What's more important is possibly what you're doing with the time, but also the reasoning behind how you're using the time. So in something like Arrow of God, there's a time for, like, let's just say farming, for instance. They talk about time in terms of like when you plant and when you harvest, and that's how they kind of see in time, or like, so things like that. I guess you have to just think more about what do you have to do here in your environment, around you, in your locality, and what's the best time to do that thing. So is there a time that everybody typically has, like, has a break? And what's that related to? Is it related to the time when the sun is going down? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you have to be quite conscious of what's going on around you, but still using those systemic tools to manage your time. I think I'm very for using technology to kind of improve indigenous and local ways of living.
Right.
So I think definitely a combination.
Do you think there's a clash, like right now, just in our world? Do you think there's an opposition?
Interesting question.
Is it between indigenous and like quote unquote modern, Western, whatever, or
like technology as we know it?
The clash between what?
Ways of living.
I don't.
Right.
There's definitely probably a clash, but I can't think of any instances. Can you think of any instances?
Oroma is pro-tech all the way. She's pro-tech.
I just think it improves life. So
We love it.
I think we can use it,
Yes, that's true. We can use it.
It improves life, and if it's not improving your life, then you need to stop.
I swear. I mean, everything is technology. As in, like, I think what is the difference between what I'm saying as technology and what we're not calling technology is only the acknowledgement by different bodies that this thing is technology.
Yes.
Like this unzu that you're eating now. So you're just eating unzu. Uzoma, do you know what unzu is? Oroma the chow unzu, like.
Yes, now. How you eating unzu like that?
As a snack.
Appetizer.
That's, I don't know how I feel about that.
Unzu milkshake. So like unzu
as a snack.
like
Wow.
You collect it from the river. It's some kind of clay that you collect. And I think the technology there is in knowing that something about that improves the system of your body.
Yes.
And I always
What
like.
does it?
But you, if you can continue, if you've been eating it since you were small and it's kept you alive and you've continued now, it has worked for something. It has worked to keep you,
even if it's just a feel good thing.
Even if it's just a feel good thing, like even if it's just that, because feeling good affects like what messages we send to the system. So at the end of the day, what's the difference between placebo and? I mean, that argument is for maybe a different part of this podcast, but I'm saying that like. Even just knowing, first of all, the first person who was able to do that, what step? Imagine the visionary thinking to be like, let me just put this thing on my tongue and then swallow it. Like, and I think that idea of tech is always about like the visionaries, the progressives who sort of like lead the way. And maybe we just don't. Sometimes I think we take for granted the ways in which we live our lives and then come up with things that improve our lives, even with like language, like slang, like Bosbas has entered our dictionary very recently. And who knew where it came from? But we needed it when it came. Like we needed like to understand that Lagos or like Higi Haga or something like that. So I just think that for me, when I think about the clash between technology and indigenous ways of living, I think that it's because the systems of the bodies, institutions in the world that can acknowledge and then fund something to be popular technology, we don't really have. And now that I framed it like that, what do you think is stopping us, or what do you think is somehow makes it that we don't get to the same level as like the people who are trying to get to Mars?
Well, as Africa?
Yes, us, or even us Nigerians, it's keep it small.
Or Nigerians. I mean, I think it's the same thing that has kind of always held us back. We're not very scientific people. We're more like, when I say scientific, I mean like understanding compositions of things and mathematics. Like, not actually, let me take that back. Because mathematics is very much in our history.
Right.
But I mean, in the ways that we use things and build things and improve on our life, I think we're more kind of like organic, or like just, let me give you an example of like when we went to Abakaliki for some indigo dyeing research, and the process of indigo dyeing is as much science as it is just like ecology, or like just understanding how living things interact, or like, so basically the indigo dyer, he's been doing this for years and years and years. He still has no formulas whatsoever. He has no idea how much of anything to mix. So in the instructions that I'm putting together, I'm asking him for like just to measure units of measure. And
he has an idea, but not
not
an exact measure. Like he doesn't have 5 inches, but he has. It should taste like this.
He doesn't even have like 5 cups.
Is that not a measure? The taste.
He doesn't have
no, but the taste, because he can say that's not a measure.
No, but you can't measure your taste accurately.
But if that's the thing, is that the accuracy.
We're not interested in the accuracy.
But that's my thing, is like not being interested in accuracy also means that sometimes you leave room for remixing. As in, like, for instance, I remember when, like, one time I was thinking about the doggy. So when the doggy came out, people were now posting videos of like whose doggy is better. As in, like, everybody did their doggy with a different flavor of doggy.
Yeah.
But I was thinking the idea, for instance, of going to school to learn Chopin, you don't really, your job is not to put your spin on a Chopin. You play Chopin the way that Chopin played Chopin. As in, like, and that is almost like how that, not even just Western, but white sorts of like tradition of passing down and measure, like it's tight and it's supposed to be accurate.
That's true.
So I sometimes get afraid that to require people to provide accuracy to that extent of like 5 inches or whatever is in a way losing something about the, like, if your mother opens the pot and closes it and she's like, yeah, we need 2 Maggi, and he's like, did the pot talk to you? How do you know we need 2 Maggi? Like, it's it's just in your sense.
How you know that?
Yeah, because it's difficult to scale. It's difficult to grow. It's difficult. There's lots of wastage. There's so many, like, I mean, I'm talking about like in that particular instance of making the solution, for instance, all the things that he's suffering just because he can't be accurate. It holds us back on some level, because that's the reason that we're not where Westerners are with technology and everything.
I mean, so I've been, as part of this research, I've been learning a lot about African fractals. Fractals that are very inherent in many African societies. And it makes me think about, like, what if it's more of like a fractal based? Yes.
Okay, can you start again from that African fractals?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about scale, like the idea of scale. And what if scale looks differently to us here? Like, what if it's a more fractal based system of scaling? where instead of one person or one dyer becoming a dye factory, right? You know, in line with that idea of remixing and the doggy, that you have a bunch of dyers who, like, the scale is in the variety and in the quantity
So
rather
instead of
than
having one thing
the
scaled
extent.
to become like everything, why can't you have? That reminds me of that thing I read.
It's more horizontal than
I
vertical.
don't think you read it. Where I was saying that they were saying that in that is too concentrated. A system won't survive because then you'll just have nothing will replicate, as in nothing will replicate because it will become dormant, as in it will become sterile when it's just one thing. But a system of over diversity as well,
Yes.
a system can die because then there is nothing. It eats itself basically because it still needs to. Even with fractals, there's a beginning formula that allows the replication happen. But in over diversity, if there's no, you're supposed to almost be as if there's no formula, so you're not allowed to be anything. Like it's almost as if it's against the rule to hold on to something and say this is who you are. So the idea is that we now have to come to a middle. And my problem is, or sometimes my worry is, on this side, we think that it is only our job to move towards that side for a middle, when they as well on the side of the West should also be moving towards our side for a middle ground.
Sure.
I don't know if this is directly answering what you're saying, but with the idea of over diversity, right? Like a lot of these pre-colonial fractal systems of architecture, of like hair making, of like organizing family, like family unit
Compound.
or like what's it called, like family spaces, right? A lot of yes, right. Just from what I've been learning, like a lot of it wasn't like you would think that it would be over diverse because it's so replicated, but it's still somehow stuck to a like foundational principle. So that thing was still always there at the core. And I'm interested in like understanding the mechanics of that. Like how does this, and you go here, it's the same thing pretty much. Without anybody saying, yeah, this is how we did it. We sat down one day to say boom. Like, do you understand? So I'm interested in like, and even somehow like asking those questions and like being interested in understanding it seems like, no, guy, you don't ask the, that's just how it is. That's like,
I think that in a way as like when we even think about formula, like when we think about formula, like part of why I think sometimes even people, how do I frame this? It's like the woman that we were interviewing, and every time we asked her, like, if you do this, will it spoil? And she's like, well, it depends on what God wants. As in, if God wants it to. Sometimes that's how people keep the formula without even knowing they're keeping the formula. By sort of reaching a point where they say, this is the point that I don't know because nobody's supposed to know it. It's like that, and which leads to all those other kind of like myths about the woman who broke too much cloud from the sky. And when she broke too much cloud, the sky moved away, and then that's why we're so far away from grace, which is almost very close to the biblical story of like eating from the tree of knowledge, and then our eyes. It's almost like if you know too much, you've cut the mystery off, and the mystery is part of why we came down to be human beings. So I think sometimes as well there's that resistance because it's like him now seeing Abubakar's page and now being like, oh wow, look at how much we showed him another dyer's page who is able to measure and able to scale, and then the guy was just he was quiet. He was quiet for a while, and we was thinking about his life. So on one hand, I can definitely see that. Yeah, his life. He was probably thinking about how his life could be better, but then me, on the other hand, looking at this stuff about like, oh, what mystery preserves. In a way, it also feels like the luxury of being nostalgic about a life that is not my own.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some would ask how much of a luxury that is. But am I saying?
I mean, I think it's definitely.
I think it's a very delicate balance that we all have to strive towards, because You definitely need precision to grow, and at the same time you need flexibility, and you need to grow in a different way, you know.
You need the paradox.
Yes,
At the heart of any
both.
essential truth is paradox. Like,
Yeah.
we need to start thinking a lot. Huh? Oh yes,
Balance.
Balenciaga. We need that balance. Like,
Sorry, I just said balance.
But the balance comes in.
Yes.
Sometimes I think the balance is more in considering the two than being like settled on a one. I don't think that I would ever get to that point in balance where I'm like, I know the perfect formula. It's like I know that this is where I've left out, so that next time I'll go back here, which means I'll lose out on like this. But I think that's even connected to the accuracy of time. Sometimes that when you leave a time to be like, when the sun goes down, you can approximate. But if it's 5, if you're come 5:05, you start apologizing, you start being sorry, you start you start regretting all the decisions you come 5 minutes late. But when the sun goes down, it can be
like, oh, the sun is going down.
Is going down now. It's not gone down.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good place to jump in. Oroma, especially, you've thrown in some very interesting words that have captured me. So words like locality, technology, scale, accuracy, measurement, formulas, precision, flexibility. In thinking about time, these words have been words that I've been thinking. I don't actually have a question. I'm just hoping this lands.
That's fair enough.
Yes, I'm hoping it does. Yeah. So these are words that I've been thinking about as well, because in this research where you're reading Hour of God now, I'm sure, like, even if you haven't gone far, you already know that like Proverbs are a very big part of the book and just of the society that is depicted in the book. Like Proverbs are how it's a technology that they use. It's like the foremost technology that they use to understand their lives and, pass it down to the, future generations, condense their wisdom, all of that stuff. Those proverbs also, like, because the society, we've already said, like, they kind of like exist outside of this modern day conception of time. Those proverbs sort of like encapsulate that as well. Like those proverbs almost exist outside of time as well. Like they are timeless. And yeah, they're timeless. So I've been thinking about, I've been very interested in reconsidering our relationship to time by like sort of like bringing those proverbs to today, like, but not just saying, oh, here are the proverbs that they used to use, guys, like go and learn them, let's start saying them and stuff. But like, what is the wisdom behind those proverbs? How did they derive those proverbs? How did they come to those proverbs? Why did they consider it important? Like, what is the thing that is inspiring them? And like, how can we like take that thing and condense it or like package it and use it, And because I share with other communities, it's kind of like, I'm thinking of it as like, how can we? It's like self-generating wisdom. How can we have like a thing that generates wisdom for us today and tomorrow, like forever and ever? And I've been like taking a very, like, this seems like such a technological or mathematical thing to do, and I'm taking that approach. Sheila and I have like, we've been thinking about this and talking about this and taking that approach to it. And I guess the question is, I want to know, connected to what you were saying about this came up when Sheila asked a question about Africa, like going to Mars and our relationship with technology, and then you mentioned understanding locality. Like, I want to know how. What do I want to know? I want to know how
that effort.
Like, what do you think first? Like, what do you think about
the attempt to sort of like almost to create a
thank you.
Since we're talking about precision and how precision is like where things can grow from, they grow out. They sort of like committed in the formula. Is there? We're trying to formularize. We're trying to almost mine these proverbs for their formula and say, okay, go back and say based on what proverbs have been made, this is what it takes to make a proverb, which means that we can make many more proverbs if we know this formula. And we're just thinking that, okay, on one hand, that seems lovely and progressive, but on the other hand, as in, what if we're now putting these constraints that we learned from outside about how to make something more precise, but in precision, we constrain something about them? Like, is there mis?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, what keeps coming to my head, the more that you both of you speak, the two things come to my head, or one thing comes to my head in like in Greek mythology, the concept of time. There's two ways that they explain time. There's kairos and there's chronos. And chronos is more of like the quantitative time, which is like 2 o'clock February, whatever. It's like it is a that you use to measure, right? And kairos is more like time that is relative to things, and it's more about time that is, it's like a season, or an opportune time, or like a specific that is perfect because of around it. So kairos is more qualitative. It's like what time is it? It's either 1 o'clock or it's lunchtime. 1 o'clock is chronos and lunchtime is kairos.
Also, shout out to Loyola Jesuit for giving us Kairos retreat. You know what? I'll just say hello. Retreat? You guys didn't have Kairos retreat? When like you?
That's how we pick it up.
And then you go somewhere for like 3 days or something, and then they have programs.
So like, where did you go?
We went to just somewhere outside school, still in Abuja, but like.
In this one.
Are you serious?
Unless I'm forgetting.
And then they gave us Kairos Cross.
Nope. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, but I didn't do it. We didn't do it in our time. Oh, that was Kairos?
Kairos.
Oh, nice.
Uzoma, did you do Kairos?
God's time. Exactly.
I did Kairos, They told us it was God's time, which also sounds like
it's more like
Oroma
that, you know, it's God's time because it can be described as God's time because God's time is the time he thinks is perfect for something to happen. And so you can be trying to do something your whole life, but like, and in ways of thinking about it, people will say that the stars aligned, the time was sense that all the different chips have been laid and it happens. And there's this really interesting way of even describing Kairos that is like weaving loom. So like, you know, the moment where you go through things with perfect, that's Kairos.
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful, because I really know that there's a perfect time.
So when you're weaving, there's in the process of weaving,
I missed that.
There's a point where you throw the spindle through, goes from one end to the other, and in that point when you can add a new yarn, a new line of yarn, and that's a specific time where you can do that thing.
So the specific opening.
Yes, and it's an opening, exactly. So that's what I'm thinking about when you guys are talking about those two things, because it's about measure, it's about precision, but it's also about understanding what is around you and understanding that there's season for everything and there's a time for everything, and kind of just applying that to whatever it is that you're doing.
When do you think that in your life recently you sort of like had to relearn or re-understand that perspective that like really time?
I mean, I think with This Is Us, I really, really like. I can't remember a specific time this is something that I probably had a lot of interface with, but I can't think of anything like that. But I just think that things really, really started for This Is Us, and I think I hadn't been opportune to be able to focus on it on its own before that. But I genuinely feel like there's something about that time that was perfect in the sense that I needed to drop Mulan and I needed to drop Oroma and I needed to let go of those two things, and they needed to be at points where I was comfortable enough to not be thinking about them.
Mm-hmm.
But also with OC, also comfortable enough to be able to do his different projects. He's never thinking about where to, he's never struggling with job, but just how the entire equation kind of aligned for all of us. That meant that I basically can understand why it basically like tripled or like grew so in 2020, because so many things had kind of been lining themselves up and organizing themselves. And then 2020 came and it was just like perfect.
Yeah. That just reminds me of like Sarah that I just growing in my about that. It's growing so it's growing its little vine. But then I got worried that the vine was growing and then there were no leaves from the vine. So I was like, what kind of impotent plant is this? I snipped it at the bud. I cut it and then I came and I was selling Oroma and my mom was like, no. You have to let, those are the roots. Like you have to let this thing grow. They'll start like creating leaves, but they kind of like have to intertwine, almost like create a community.
If you think about that, you may not understand that like those are the roots. And the monstera kind of, the way the monstera grows is that it looks like it's not growing for a very long time and then it just shoots and it starts growing really quick. And if you're not understanding what's going on, you don't understand that all of those roots are like what is going to really depend on. That was
going to be my choice of a plant because of that. Like that's what I was going to say. I was saying a plant that doesn't look like it's growing, but then eventually it grows, because I'm always like, I had slow puberty. Like I really didn't like, in my head, I didn't start as a promising person, like as in for my own version of myself. And then all that time where I was sort of like
rooting.
I was rooting in something, so that when I now am myself and people are like, how did you? I'm like, you don't even understand all the ways that I had to sort of like really say, this is what I believe in. Like all the slow puberty was really just swimming in a sea of options and nothing fitting except the one that fits. And like when it fits like a glove, then I just shot, because all the other ones, it's not that I didn't try, but they were not going anywhere. So that time of slow puberty was almost like getting on different horsebacks and being thrown off, getting on different horsebacks and being thrown off. And then when you find your horseback, it's like all the things that you guys have already been setting, you don't even look back because you've done that. You've experienced the idea of these.
It's time.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. And that's why I love this Palo Santo story. Can you tell the Palo Santo story?
What Palo Santo?
The tree.
So there's, Uzoma, do you know about the Palo Santos tree or fragrance or smell or incense stick? Basically chip blocks of wood, right? And they're just from this tree. And the interesting thing about the tree is that it has the natural smell. Can't get that natural smell unless that tree dies by itself. One, not only does it die by itself, it has to lie in its death on the floor for, I can't remember how many years. It's over 5 years, like almost 10 years. Like you literally have to allow it to lie in state for a really long time. And if you don't do any of these two things and you cut up the tree and all of that, it doesn't have the smell.
It doesn't give you the scent.
It doesn't give you the scent.
Which is actually crazy, because when humans die, we smell so bad. As in, like we rot. Yeah. We smell like crap. But look at when a plant is dying, it can get to that. But yes, humans think that like we're the shits. It's so confusing to me.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate.
And that's it. That plant's life. Like think about the concept of time, and does it end time for an individual? Does it end when we die, or like, because you can see that for this tree, it continues.
And if you don't have perspective, you will take that first stage of living as waste. As in, like, if you don't have perspective of what the thing can be, you can easily call it waste because it's not reaching the intention you designed for it. Like, I remember going to Ocean State, and we saw this tree, and in the afternoon it was just all these like brown kernels or whatever. Then we came out in the night to just dance in the forest, and then Demi called me. I was like, Sheila, come and look at this thing. I went to the tree. on the floor, just these little bulbs glowing green, like lime green.
Wow.
And I was like, what's going on here? The whole place was surrounded by these lime green glows. And I thought it was going to be in the ground. I picked it up. They were just seeds that were glowing.
What?
So when I
From
tried
the
to
tree?
take from the tree, and I tried to take a picture, whenever I put my phone, it would stop glowing. And then when I take my first
Whenever I try to take a picture of glow in the dark.
as it, oh yeah, it's true.
Because you can't take a picture. Wow,
It
that is
didn't- yeah, so then we all came, we lay down at the tree, we hugged the tree. I wrote a poem for the tree, as in like, because it wasn't until the next, I was trying to figure out what it was. And the next morning when I saw the brown things, I now realized, oh my God, it's the brown things that look like they've fallen from the thing. And I think the sun probably charges it with something.
Can you imagine what assets is in that tree?
As in,
And at the right time, what does it do?
it glows. It fucking glows. And that's things that, like, but if you're raking it, you think, let me rake off all the.
Yeah.
And so we may not actually know because what brought us to the
also-
area of the tree was what it had shed.
And I think it also speaks to Kairos as well. Like,
Exactly.
you know, that you don't just discover
You don't
that.
just
Like,
stumble on it. Things
have to sort of line
they
up.
present themselves.
And you have to make yourself open for things to present to you.
And you have to also be ready to not like there's a season, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kairos is a season.
Yeah.
It's like it's only a
Open,
particular
yes.
time.
Yep.
You can't expect it to be all the time.
And which means that if you also live in that state of like precision and accuracy constantly,
You don't know
then
your
you
Kairos.
don't get to but you don't get to experience your Kairos time, because like if you're just living at 2 p.m., 2 p.m., 2 p.m. and you're not taking lunch time, you won't really like what you do with your calendar.
You're not thinking about time in a more flexible way to be able to understand when there's an opportunity.
Exactly. You think about what's wasting your time and what's like produced or what you're producing with your time. Anytime you're not producing becomes a waste of time. And so you're not even comfortable enough to be like, what's this sense? Oh my God, is it coming from this stem? As in, let me cut it and let me try and see what like happens.
Yeah, let me burn it.
Let me burn it. Exactly.
Yeah, so Uzoma, what was your question again? I can't remember.
Hello, Uzoma. We had a serious interruption.
Yeah, it happens.
Yes, but Oroma is looking for a proverb.
In the book?
Yes.
Okay. When it cut off, we were saying
so we were talking about time.
How it's quality.
About time in terms of accuracy and precision, and time in terms of proverbs, and how time is, I guess, how you can use the concept of time to create proverbs, or like extend the culture of creating proverbs,
or just how time is the ingredient almost in like making proverbs.
Yes, time is the main ingredient in making.
And then also the other side of that like proverbs illustrates a certain understanding of time. Like they manifest a certain time.
Yes, you can only be someone who's speaking in proverbs when you know people have time to listen to, like, hear you and understand you. Just like imagine giving proverbs in a meeting and people are like, "Excuse me, sir, it's 5:45."
So I think it's quite beautiful, time within proverbs, because it's just the foundation for the proverb usually. I was trying to find one proverb just so we can see how it's usually based off of an understanding of what happens around a particular time or something like that. Or an understanding of like
It's like everybody
knows,
shares that like this is what should happen when this time happens. It is common knowledge.
It's usually based off.
Do we still have it?
Knowledge.
Do we have? I think this is a good. Do we have common knowledge now in this day and age?
Question. I think I want to say we do.
Yeah, we do, but it's mostly we're relying more and more on technology to have common knowledge.
Yes.
Google. that enough said?
It's a lot said.
Even I'm thinking of like social media.
I'm thinking of social media.
I'm thinking
Thinking
of
of like how,
Twitter.
yeah, like Twitter particularly, like how
Yes.
sometimes in even in my life, like when a situation comes up relationship wise, I just hear all the tweets that people have said about like what to do in this kind
Yeah.
of relationship, like as in like
Yeah.
this is where you live,
Yeah.
this is what shows up to show you that this is the thing. And people have complained a lot about like why, as in people think that real relationships are Twitter relationships, or like, but at the same time you also have people that are like thankful that Twitter has warned them about certain things. But as well, Twitter is so wide, as in like there are Nigerians that are tweeting about Nigeria from England or from Scotland,
Exactly.
but then there are also African Americans who are tweeting like just because you can't hear the accents of the language, but you can just you can hear something,
Yeah.
and then you have there's just all these spheres of Twitter, but at the same time, it's just a tweet that somehow has landed into your thing and has affected your version of common. But is the world that accessible for us to be sharing like solutions for the same problem?
It's crazy that like when it seems like so the way what I'm thinking about right now is it's crazy that at the time where there was not lots of tools for communication and people were more or less like distant, like for like to explain, like in a Igbo village, for
Yeah.
instance, you only see the 200 people that live around because you're not traveling to see or you're not speaking to anybody on the phone. It's crazy that in those times, common knowledge was more of a thing. But at the same time, it's not so crazy if you think about it. It's kind of obvious why. Because we're so diverse that we notice the things that are like the common knowledge is more obvious.
You mean as the village, like in the 200
Yes,
people?
but it's not even. They're not just for like villages. They're for like the entire
Whole culture, land or whatever.
And that's because like even though we're all so different and we're all over the place, everybody agrees on certain things.
Yes.
Our things are just more like there's no formula anymore. And it's crazy that technology is doing the opposite of what we thought it should do, because it's bringing together so many different voices that there's actually now no formula, so there's no common knowledge because there's no common location, there's no common. So if I drop a proverb, the African American tweeting about Nigeria from America is definitely not going to understand what I'm talking about because.
But isn't that an assumption that they might not understand? Because what if the knowledge is so like people do understand it like overseas? It's like thinking about how we've had to translate, like how we were reading enlightening books with acorns and shit. Like, sure, I didn't know what that acorn was, but I knew when it was winter, it was time for this particular fruit to drop, or like,
or at least you understood that it had to do with winter.
Because the book would tell me it has to do with winter. As in the book will start, if you read a few of them, then you know what, you have an idea of what winter is. It's something that snow falls in this time. And if snow falls in this time, like that's what they call winter, and these are the kind of activities they do. So like their own proverbs, which might not have been packaged in the way our own is, but like their proverbs being, let's say, their way of living. I started to understand the formula of this is what the story did that last time and this is what the next one did, so I can assume that in the third one it will still do it. So I think sometimes as well I feel like it's harder for people out there to understand me. But what made it easier to understand them? Because when they came, they did not even explain themselves to me. They just dropped the book. The books that they are reading are the same books that I'm reading.
They understand. That's how you understand.
So that's why maybe we should
drop their culture on you.
That's what maybe we should do. Drop our culture on them. That's why I'm wondering, like, what's stopping us from just dropping our culture on them?
Nothing. So Uzoma, you need to get to that task of creating more proverbs using the concept of
like, how do you or Oroma think your time is different from your parents' time? And how do you think your time is different from Oroma's time?
Well, I think So definitely, I know that it has something to do with the difference in those 3 times have to do with the perception of time in those 3 times.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. So in my parents' time, partly because information as what do you call it? There was not as plentiful. There's not that much access to information. Things were slower. Things were definitely slower. Like if somebody wants to tell somebody in another city something, they have to wait until they post a letter and it gets there. Things just happened slower. So the idea of time was much slower. How they found themselves in that time was completely different. Or the way that they saw themselves in that time was completely different. See myself right now. And even just seeing Oroma right now in my time, I understand that what she's going to be in the future is just completely, I can never understand. She's already moving much quicker in my time.
How?
She doesn't have any concentration span. She's like, stuff in like 2 minutes, 5 minutes. She just throws, just moves, just keeps it moving so quick. She's so quick. She watches so many shows at the same time.
Yes. I noticed that with my niece and nephew too.
And she's watching everything.
Because the shows that will come up, they'll come up with the box, but under the box, you just have the suggestions.
Yes, exactly.
And
she's jumping from one show to another, like within minutes.
Do you get worried?
And that's how Roland is as well. I don't get worried, no. I just think, it's time. Time is changing. What can you do?
That's why some parents get really scared because,
same.
As in, if in my time I know that to have a life that's enjoyable means having a longer attention span, what's the difference between not helping children develop a skill that helped you in your time versus understanding that the rules don't apply?
You realize that in our parents' time, they used to watch movies that were 4 hours long. How can you sit down and watch a movie that is 4 hours long? Like if it's not amazing. Whereas now we just watch shows, 30 minutes, done. I've downloaded all the information off.
But sometimes I worry about which I have to go and find 4-hour movie. Like when I watch a movie that's like 3 hours, I feel so like that's part of why I have to read because I have to consciously put myself in a slower time because the environment is not.
That's why you have books. I think it's important that they're reading books, reading history books, reading books like Arrow of God, reading,
But then people will say, why read a book when you on Twitter? Because then people will say that now. Don't. So that's my time. It's like saying, don't read books anymore. Just go on Twitter and go on a thread. Like Instagram is making guides now, so why read a book? Understand that we're from different times, but I think still to be that person who can smell this wood in the forest and be like, I wonder what this wood is. Let me go and see. There's still something about
what are the ways that modern technology encourages people to slow down? I think it's what do those look like? Are there any ways that modern technology encourages you, apart from
headspace,
meditating?
That's it. So that's
I want to say that like it's only when the tech is making a conscious and deliberate effort to, like the DNA of like by default, modern technology does not encourage you to slow down.
Yeah.
Like the like prevailing design patterns are actually encouraging you to do the opposite. But it's only when they make it conscious, like headspace or like arena, stuff like that. But also
an experience.
Yeah.
I was having an anxiety attack. I was really freaking out just about different things, and I had decided to do yin yoga, and I usually do yin yoga. And for some reason, like normally I would be excited about doing yin yoga and I would do it, but because I was dealing with like an experience that I just really panicking, I couldn't even focus enough to do yin yoga. And so I picked up my phone, and what did I feel like doing instantly? I just felt a bit empty. Like I felt like I hadn't spoken to a lot of people that usually mean a lot to me. And so I just started reaching out to different people and just saying hi to lots of different people. And that's eventually how I was able to like, yeah, that's what I did for 40 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know.
I was just chatting people up, random people that I've been meaning to for a long time. And that was technology. I was just catching up.
So that's the question as well, is that like, is technology something that is there and we are supposed to form our values
Around
outside
it.
that we now come and use the technology, or
Mhm.
is technology supposed to come with the to sort of like help us make the idea, as in that we don't have to fight to instill our values. The values are already in there.
Values, man.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
But
We definitely have to bring our values.
It's not. Then the promise of
I think
technology is not. Technology is like regular life.
Yeah, you're just supposed to use it to
help navigate.
yes, to navigate your regular life.
Because the promises.
Because things are moving much faster. So if you don't use it, you will be slow. If you don't use it, you will not. You may not. So it's just there to help you keep up with times. With the
times. Now that is the what are the times? What are the times?
The times, the current time. I mean, the current set of time that you're in.
So everybody's orbiting around.
Yes, everybody's orbiting around. The pace, the season, the trends.
That's another
times.
one. Times are very different from what's the time. The times are the conglomeration of time by every
time.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This conversation is hard to end because anyway, we said we wanted to ask more questions and actually have more answers, and I definitely have a lot of questions after this because it's like sometimes I don't know what to expect from I don't know what to hold technology accountable for.
I think I'm happy with like conclusion that we should use technology to navigate life without instilling our own values. Like basically uphold your values and use technology to navigate life around your values.
But what if technology doesn't even give you breathing space? As in, it doesn't.
That's what I mean.
Uphold, like for instance, on Instagram, if you want to be slow or and you want to keep up with technology, it's a marketplace. You want to make your money, but you also still want to be slow. How do you bring those two values together? You want to be ambitious and survive, but at the same time, you don't want to survive. You don't want to believe that that's the only pace of survival.
I think the challenge is that technology shouldn't be opinionated, but now it is. Like, it should. It should be.
That it should not be. I'm asking because of that word "should." What convinces you to not be opinionated?
Should is a strong word. But I think I stand. Like, it's if we're saying that it's a thing that you come to with intention, with your own values, it should be a container for that, right? That's like, okay, this is how I'm approaching it. This is how, like, this is the way I'm going to use it. Versus you come to it and then it's sort of like on its own tries to sway you, try to impose its own values on you, and then it's like this.
The reason I don't know why technology should. I don't know if technology should not be opinionated. Is that like reading about like the early technology, like Namjoon Pike and the rest of them. They were very opinionated that they needed, as in the world needed to be more connected to each other, like become extinct. So it was opinionated for the value of freedom. Therefore, like the opinion is part of the driving force that actually like burst and became what we have, the internet. Like I don't think we would have the internet without the passion of people with opinions. So maybe maybe
on one level,
like the opinion that we are seeing now.
Right. Okay. So on one level, by default, like where we create with our own biases, whatever. So by default, anything you're making is going to have there's going to be something informing it, right? But I think I think what I'm trying to say is like it's like how there's a lot of studies being done on how like social media, for example, taps on a very like primitive level of your psyche, right? Because the people creating it are going, it's almost like a war. It's almost like they're going above and beyond to like sway you in their direction. Like the level of neutrality is now so diluted that you coming to it with your own value, you're almost always at an odds with it because it's just this violent sea of like, they're really doing studies trying to get you, like, get your, do you understand? Like, so I'm like, that's too much. Like, there's a level to it, there's a level of balance, and you need to check yourself.
The only way I can even, like, or the only thing coming to mind right now is like people saying, well, if you don't want to cut your hair, don't go to Loyola.
Yeah.
You're in charge of your own
Do you understand?
Yeah.
destiny.
If you don't want to do this, maybe don't come to Instagram. And I don't know. I don't know what I think about that.
I tell you what, I think technology also.
There's a joke.
Have you guys looked at screen time?
No.
Screen time. I'm sorry,
The app.
that's another time. That's screen time.
Oh yeah, screen time.
Screen time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Check your screen time. It's important.
Yeah.
And you can actually like manage your screen time using technology.
Yeah. But some people don't want to check because ignorance means to sometimes.
You can set the number of how much time you're allowed to be on Instagram. I did that originally when I got my new phone. Now I don't need it anymore because I don't actually spend that much time on it. But like it used to time me up and shut it. Like I have to literally click the button to say I want more time here.
Which is your value of like discipline. Like you're finding,
you know your value. It's your value that you used to set how long you should. Instagram.
It's your value that sets you to go and to download screen time.
Exactly. You have it. It's your value that makes you use it.
Thank you.
Exactly. And then when you now press that you want to continue, that's your discipline. It's failing you.
Yeah.
So I think.
But that's not a hard question because people will now say, like, what about people that are born with different levels of
and I want to
blah 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 blah. What happens to them? They can't afford that same.
You delete.
Okay, so that's
you delete Instagram. That's what Shana does.
I believe that.
People who are serious about controlling things like that just delete it because that's at some point that's the only thing you can do, right?
Once again we're still saying that like there's citizens' choice, that the producers of this technology don't take